This is information security, group 5B. I'm Anzalata presenting for the group. Our main topic is law and ethics, guidelines, security awareness, and policies. And these are my group members. Objectives. We intend to cover the basic terms and agencies under which we want to bring out certain keywords used in the security sector. And then under policies and guidelines, we talk about organizational laws and its standards. And under security awareness, we talk about how employees can become well informed about security environment. And then lastly, we talk about law and ethics, which we learn some of the rules that are enforced by government and those that are not. Basic terminologies. Every field has got key terms used to describe their operations. These terms also make their activities unique from others. The security sector is of no exception. Some of these terminologies include laws. These are rules that mandate or prohibit behavior enforced by governing authorities, that is courts. All laws usually goes with sanctions, that is when a law is being breached, the person is being sanctioned by the courts or the governing authority. Ethics. Ethics are rules that define socially acceptable behavior, and these are not enforced by courts. That is, it doesn't have sanctions. Policies. In basic terms, it is termed organizational laws. These are the laws that define particular workplace or company. Jurisdiction. This is the right of a court to hear a case if a wrong was committed in its territory or against its citizens. Case law. That is the documentation about application of law in various cases. This is where every law, every case that has been handled in court is recorded for future references. Due care. When we say due care has been taken, then we say that employees know what is and what is not acceptable and the consequences of those laws. Due diligence. This is a sustained effort to protect others. Liability. This is a legal obligation beyond what is required by law, and it increases if you fail to take due care. Cultural mores. These are fixed morals or customs of a group of people, and these form the basis of ethics. Long-arm jurisdiction. This, where a court has the ability to reach far and apply law in another state or country that is outside its jurisdiction, it can apply the law over there. Then we look at standards, guidelines, and best practices. It defines what must be done to comply with policy and how to do so. Now we look at agencies. Generally, security agencies are well-established companies or entities that are well-equipped to arrest, deal, prosecute, and enforce the laws laid down by the courts. They go after people who break the laws governing a state. In our case, the misuse and breach of computer systems. They ensure that these criminals are dealt with and appropriately punished. Here are some examples of agencies. BNI, that is the Bureau of National Investigations. The BNI has investigative jurisdiction to arrest or detain and interrogate over a wide range of criminal offenses. The BNI is legally a creature of the Security Intelligence Agency Act 526, 1996, having been continued in existence by Section 10 of that Act in relation to Ghana. Other agencies outside Ghana, particularly in the US, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS. These are responsible for counterterrorism, cybersecurity, aviation security, border security, and etc. Federal Bureau of Investigations, FBI. They are to protect, defend the United States against terrorists and foreign intelligence threats, to uphold and enforce the criminal law of the United States. We have the National Infrastructure Protection Center, NIPC. They are charged with protecting computer systems and information systems critical to the United States infrastructure. The National Security Agency, NSA. This agency is responsible for global monitoring, collection, and processing of information and data for foreign and domestic intelligence and counterintelligence purposes, specializing in the discipline known as signal intelligence. And the United States Secret Service. This is under the Department of the Homeland Security, and they are charged with conducting criminal investigation and protecting U.S. political leaders and their families, and also visiting heads of states or governments. Security awareness. Under security awareness, we look at the security education training awareness, training and awareness, popularly known as the SETA program. These are procedures for implementing a procedure for implementing a SETA program is initiated as soon as a general security policy is established. SETA is a security control measure aimed at one, preventing unintentional security breaches. Two, ensure that employees are familiar with a more secure approach to doing their jobs and expand their general knowledge on the performance of their duties. And then also look at reducing the incidences of accidental security breaches by employees. And lastly, supplementing the general education and training programs in place to educate staff on information security. Then we look at security education. Not every employee requires a formal information security degree or certificate, and so it is necessary that everyone in an organization be trained and aware of information security. Security training. It entails offering specific information and hands-on education to members of the organization in order to prepare them to perform their tasks in a safe manner. Now look at spheres of security. The sphere of security in general refers to the reality that information is under attack from a range of sources. Under sphere of security, we have the sphere of use and then the sphere of protection. Under the sphere of use, okay, this is the sphere of use. Under the sphere of use, you can see that we have information at the center of the sphere and systems which are connected to networks, and then the networks interconnection form the internet. people access information using these systems. So it shows how information is transferred from this center of the sphere from into the systems and then to the networks around it. In that people can access information from computer systems, the hard drive, through the system. And then the sphere of use, sorry, the sphere of protection talks about how information is being protected. And this actually has three main design and implementation. That is technology, people, and then policy. So if you look at it, you can see that this is where the policies are, and these are what is used to access or protect this information from unauthorized usage or from attacks. And then people access these information using these technologies. So there's the need for protection. You have the redundancy, monitoring. The redundancy talks about when one system fails, it doesn't have to affect, or the vulnerability of one system doesn't have to affect the vulnerability of the others in the system. So you have the monitoring system, the patches and upgrades, host IDs, as host intrusion detection systems, the firewalls, network IDS, fuzzy service encryption, and backups access controls. So much. Okay. Now let's talk about design of security architecture. This is divided, sorry, this is divided into two forms. That is defense in depth and then security parameter. And we talk about the defense in depth. We're actually talking about a layered implementation of systems. In here, in this diagram, we can see that we have two systems that help prevent attacks. We have the firewall over here. We can see that there's some untrusted network over here, and then there's a firewall. And also there is a detection, network intrusion detection system. Also helps in protecting the system. So this is how the layered approach goes on in the depths of in the defense in depth. And then for the detection system, we have the header, that is the packet level rules, and they have data content rules also over here that helps protect the system. All right. Now let's look at the security parameter. The security parameter protects all internal systems. So as we can see, protects all internal systems from outside threats. So, all right. So we can see that this is the security parameter of the network, and only within it that we have the trusted network. And any attack, it prevents attack from outside, and but within it, I think for any intruder has to be within the network in order to penetrate the system. So it also uses components like firewalls, DMS, demilitarized zones, proxy servers, intrusion detection system to form this parameter. And here we have, you can see we have the DMZ as a parameter, form the parameter. All right, we talk about this later on. Okay, now let's talk about the key technology components. As I mentioned, are the firewall. Information traveling into or out of an organization is selectively discriminated against by this device. They are protecting the system or the information. Then we have the demilitarized zone, DMZ. No man's land between inside and outside networks where some organization place web servers. So as we saw over here, so the outside here form the DMZ. Right. Then you have the intrusion detection systems. Organization may desire to build an intrusion detection system in order to identify unauthorized activity within their internal network or specific computers. Now let's talk about policies and guidelines. As stated earlier in the terminologies, policies are governing laws of an organization. A company's policy ensures that its workers act and operate in ways that suit them and their customers. Policies serve as guide to organizational behavior. Now let's look at some of the policies, the characteristics of some of the policies or how policies are. Policies direct how issues should be addressed and technologies that should be used in addressing those issues. And security policies are least expensive controls to execute, but most difficult to implement due to emerging technology. And we have shipping policy is difficult because policies should never conflict with laws to stand up in courts if it's being challenged and should be properly administered. Because of this, it makes shaping of policies very difficult. Then communities of interest need to consider policies as starting point for security efforts. And you can see that policies are very vital when it comes to establishing security. So if a community wishes, to start with the policy. Now, we have, for policies to be viable, it must have this. Every policy have to have the following. That is, people responsible for reviews. It needs to be reviewed and a schedule reviews. We have method of recommending reviews, specific policy issuance, and the revision date. Now let's look at information classification. Information classification talks about a process in which organizations access the data that they hold and the level of protection it should be given. Organizations usually classify information in terms of confidentiality. We have some levels of confidentiality. That is, we have confidential information. And these informations, only senior management have access to these information. And then secondly, we have the restricted information. And with this, most employees have access. We have the internal information, which is within the company or the workplace, and these only all employees have access to it. We have the public information which everyone has access to. And agree there's policy stipulate that at end of business day, classified information is properly secured is very vital. Law and ethics. Let's talk about some types of laws that we have. We have the civil laws, and these are the laws that govern a nation or a state. We talk about the criminal laws. This is of much importance when it comes to security, information security. And these are the harmful actions to society. These are prosecuted by the states. We have torts. Tort. Individual lawsuits. These are individual lawsuits as records for wrongs prosecuted by individual attorneys. These are the wrongdoings by individuals, and these are persecuted by attorneys. We have private laws. These include family, commercial, and labor laws. We have public laws, which includes criminal, administrative, and constitutional law. Generally, you can be sued for almost everything. But information security practices can minimize, can help in these ways by minimizing damages. That is, if you adhere to some security practices, like you know how to use strong password and for protection and authentication, you connect to secure Wi-Fi. You don't just connect to any Wi-Fi. It helps minimize damages caused. And then we have help provide effective response system to incidents. That is when we have enable firewall protection at work and at home. When you do these practices, it helps provide effective response to systems when incidents of attacks or intrusion occurs. Then reduce incidents resulting in lawsuits. You can see that if your system is secure, people don't have a lot of crimes to commit. Then see that there will be lesser lawsuits. And you yourself will not get yourself into trouble. All right. Now let's look at some general federal laws, an example of some general federal laws. We have the one Computer Fraud and Abuse Act 1986, also known as the CFAA. The Computer Fraud Abuse Act was enacted in 1986 and as an amendment for the first federal computer fraud law, which was established to enacted to address hacking. This law has been amended several times, and the most recent one is in 2008, and now covers a broader range of conduct far beyond the original intent. It prohibits intentional accessing a computer without authorization or in excess of authorization. And we have the next, we have the National Information Infrastructure Protection 1996. This also was enacted an amendment of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, which Act 1986. It also now has been amended to include fraud and other related activities in connection with computers. You have the Telecommunication Deregulation Competition Act. This act was an amendment of the Communication Act 1934. This Communication Act was made for broadcasting and telecommunication, but it has restrictions that most people could not go into the broadcasting and telecommunication communication market. Therefore, this law was enacted to amend that law in order to include cover a lot of broadcasting Communication Networks. We have the Communication Decency Act 1996, CDA. This act was established enacted in order to prohibit individuals from knowingly transmitted obscene or indecent messages to a recipient under the age of 18. So no one can, if you send any message that's obscene or indecent or to an underage person, that is 18 person, you'll be sued, you'll be fined, or you'll be in prison. And then we have the Computer Security Act of 1986. This act directs the National Bureau of Standards to establish computer standard programs for federal computer systems, and including guidelines for security of such systems. So it sets minimal federal government security standards. We have examples of private federal laws. Sorry. Okay, private federal laws. These are, we have one example, factor red flag regulation of 2009. This is this act requires that this law requires that each financial institution or creditor, which includes most security firms, implement a written program to detect, prevent, and mitigate their identity theft in connection with the opening or maintenance of covered accounts. So this is mainly for to protect people who have accounts in the security firms. We have the Federal Piracy Act of 1974. And this act established a code of fair information practice that governs the collection, maintenance, use, and dissemination of information about individuals that is maintained in a system of records by federal agencies. We have examples of copyright laws. These are one, intellectual property protection. Intellectual property talks about the creation of the mind, the arts, form of creativity. And this intellectual property covers four main primary types, and which include the patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets. Now, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998, DMCA. This criminalizes production and dissemination of technology, devices, or services intended to circumvent measures that control access to copyrighted works, commonly known as the Digital Rights Management, DRM. Look at the local regulations and international law regulation bodies. Local regulations ensure that laws governing their state territory is obeyed, as enforced, and criminals are dealt with in their own jurisdiction. Restrictions on organizational computer technology use at states, local levels. Example is in the state of Ohio, USA. Rev REB.code 1347 is notified data breach systems. There are international bodies who also collaborate to enforce laws between two or more countries. Example is the European Council Cybercrime Convention. The international task force who oversees internet security functions for standardized international technology laws. They also attempt to improve effectiveness of international investigations into breaches of technology law. And then lastly, have the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. This requires website disclosure about data collection and user consent. This is found in the Europe. Then we have the United Nations Charter. This makes provisions to a degree for information security during information warfare. Either information warfare uses information technology to conduct organized and lawful military operations. Now we look at law, ethics, and culture. Differences in culture makes it difficult to determine ethical behavior since we have different cultural backgrounds and different rules that each culture takes as wrong or right. This results in behavior that are accepted in countries conflicting with another nation's conduct. Ethics and education. Employees must be trained in expected behavior, especially regarding information security. Proper ethical training is vital to creating informed, well-prepared, and low-risk system user. Example of entities that provide training for security professionals include ACM, Association of Computer Machinery, and then we have the Computer Security Institute, CSI. These are our references. We thank you for listening to this lecture. If you have any questions, you can contact any of my group members and they will be able to help you. My group members once again. Thank you.